From Home is once again directed by John Watts, who also directed Spider-Man Homecoming, and stars a bunch of great casts, some great actors, and some new additions to the MCU in general, and concludes what is now known as the Infinity Saga. This is, of course, the end of Phase 3, and is sort of an epilogue to the events that took place in Avengers Endgame. If you saw that film, you know the events of that were defining moments for this particular universe, and things are definitely going to change from that standpoint. There are going to be perceptions, there are going to be character motivations that are going to be a bit different, and Peter Parker is at the center of it all, trying to make sense of things and trying to figure out how to move on from there. However, the first thing you can do is try to forget about it. Try to be a normal person for once, go on his trip to Europe from high school, where he gets to spend time with his friends, Ned, and the others who are there as well as try to establish some sort of a relationship with MJ. However, Nick Fury calls him and says, hey, I need your help with something, and he gets involved in something which includes a man named Quentin Beck, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, and aka the Mysterio. AKA the Mysterio. And that's all I'm gonna say about the film because that's all the trailers tell you. Before I go on any further, I want to say that this is a 100% spoiler-free review. There's gonna be absolutely no discussions in here about detailed sequences in this film, only as much as you know from the trailers, which is all you should really know, to be honest with you. I was excited for this film, as I have been for every Spider-Man related piece of media ever. Ever since I started reading Spider-Man, I've been a fan of the character, and ever since then I have seen, played, and watched pretty much everything related to Spider-Man. I think this is a really great character, and every time something new comes out, I'm particularly giddy for it. And I really liked Homecoming. I thought that was a really awesome movie. On subsequent viewings, I did find that it played things maybe a little too safe in a few scenes, but I still really enjoyed it for what it is. It was one of my favorite MCU films and still remains to be. It's in my top 10. And I thought Tom Holland did a great job with that, and I thought John Watts did a great job with that. I saw this movie earlier tonight, and ever since I've come back to my room, I've been trying to process certain thoughts about it. It's not that hard a movie to process, it's pretty easy, but at the same time, I was trying to make sure that the statements I'm about to make were authentic, that I meant what I was saying, and that I wasn't just trying to make them so I could increase a hype level or whatever. But after careful consideration, I have to say this might be my new favorite live action Spider-Man movie since Spider-Man 2, which is a high bar to cross, but I think this movie is either, in my opinion, just as good and in some ways maybe a little bit better. One of the things, like I said, about Homecoming, which I thought was a little off, was that it did play it a little on the safe side. They were testing out those waters, trying to see if it worked. In this case, they decided, yeah, there's no such thing as a restraint. All the shackles are loose and it's all out there. And the film is crazy, it's weird, it's bizarre, but it's also enthralling as hell. There's not a single dull moment in this film. I absolutely loved it from start to finish, and I'm trying hard to find issues with it, and I'm honestly not being able to find any major ones. And a lot of that is due to the confidence in the direction and writing. Because there are no shackles this time, they have a lot of potential to do pretty much anything. And they do that. There's definitely a lot more imaginative techniques that they've applied in this. There's a lot of creative sequences which I was amazed to see, and I can't wait to see them again in the theater as fast as possible. And I'm already got my ticket for opening day on July 2nd. One of the things that continues from Homecoming to here is that they've continued to expand on Peter Parker as a character, but they've not lost the fact that at the end of the day, despite anything that he does, despite anything that the world wants him to be, despite anything that the events of Endgame have put on him, he's still a kid, and the film never forgets that aspect of it. It definitely latches on to the fact that at the end of the day, he's still 16. He's still going to high school. He's just trying to impress a girl. He's being shy and awkward about it, and at the same time he's also being the badass superhero and being that cultural icon that people love and admire, and thinking, oh yeah, he's an Avenger now. What's he gonna do next after what happened in Endgame? Which leads to some fantastic dynamics he has with other characters throughout the film. I really like his chemistry here with MJ in particular. I think they did a really cute job with that. I like their moments, their awkward moments of conversation. I thought they were really charming because they were pretty much exactly what you'd expect when you're talking to your high school crush. I had those exact moments when I was talking to my high school crushes. Um, so yeah, that happened. I wish I had spider powers to go with those. Although I have to say, my favorite new character in this film, the character that I loved start to finish, was Quentin Beck. I thought Jake Gyllenhaal is just did an amazing job in this. He's one of my new favorite Marvel characters. I have been waiting pretty much 17 to 18 years since I first started reading Spider-Man comics and got into this character to see Mysterio on the big screen. And every time I'd be like, they're gonna do it, they're gonna do it. Part of me, somehow, even at the age of 5, was like, yeah, I don't think they have the computer graphics interface budget to do this, or I don't think they're gonna be able to do the CGI for the stuff that Mysterio can do just yet. But someday they will. And I will be there to see that film when they finally do it. So when I found out that for Far From Home, Mysterio was gonna be in the film, I was pumped out of my mind because I was finally gonna see Mysterio in it. My 4-year-old was very excited. My 4-year-old inner me, that is. I don't have a 4-year-old. That would be disturbing. I loved every second he had on screen. He has one of my favorite moments in this movie. It's the speech he gives. I loved it. It was so fun. And Jake Gyllenhaal just reveled in every second this character had on screen. And one thing I really liked about him is that, again, they embraced this character's persona. They embraced his characteristics to a T, and they did an excellent job of bringing him to screen. I'm so happy with the way they handled Mysterio. Also, one really good thing about Mysterio, which is actually a positive on the whole film as a whole, is the score. Michael Giacchino has outdone himself in terms of Spider-Man. I thought his Homecoming score was a lot of fun, and I do actually own that on physical media, and I think this is definitely gonna be added to the collection. I think his score here is fantastic. The stuff he's done for Mysterio in particular is standout work, very impressive material, and it's probably gonna be plugged into my earphones all summer for the very least. I mean, it's a great piece of music that he's composed for this character. Which actually brings me to something which, I know it sounds off topic, but it's not, is the comic book feel of this film. This definitely feels like a comic book. And I say that in a very good way. One thing about the MCU is that it is cinematic. This one is cinematic, yes. But it's also the closest it's ever felt to a comic book. You're just turning the pages. And it actually felt like reading a live comic book. And I was so impressed that they finally managed to do that, and they did it in a really awesome way. The special effects are also really up tier, and the action sequences are the best in terms of what they've been able to do with Spider-Man. Really, the third act of this film is something to be admired. They've done such a brilliant job with the finale to this. I was impressed. Very impressed, in fact. All the sequences, especially this one sequence with a molten giant of a character, is just impressive as hell. Also, at one point in time, the film does take place in Prague. Couldn't help but squeal, because, you know, that was there for a while. So it was definitely like trip down memory lane, I will say that for sure. That was nice. The film is crammed with Easter eggs to other Spider-Man related media, and also great tie-ins to the MCU as a whole. And also, it does have this strong character. It does have Quentin as this really, he's not underplayed at all. There are clear motivations and aspirations to this character, and you really understand where he's coming from and his angle really, really well. I could honestly gush about Jake Gyllenhaal all day. I really could. Also, the end credit sequences, definitely stick around for them. The first end credits scene, I'm just gonna say it might be the best thing I have ever seen in a ending tag for a Marvel film. That might be the best scene they've ever crafted. It might be the best end credit scene in history that I've ever seen. If you thought Deadpool 2's end credit scene was awesome with the time traveling stuff, oh man, you are in for a treat here. I mean, wow. There's definitely a lot of crowd-pleasing moments. There's definitely a lot of emotional moments. There's one terrific scene, which I'm not going to talk about it. I'll talk about it in the spoiler review. But it was a really nice character moment that happens, which was just, I couldn't believe it. I thought that was just a spectacularly done sequence, and I hope to God that they keep doing this. I know it sounds like I'm overhyping this and I'm overdoing this, but really, I absolutely adored this film. I'm really trying to find major issues with it. I have minor nitpicks here and there. There's a few moments that could have been straightened out a little bit. There's definitely a couple of character beats that could have been maybe a little bit better at points. There's a subplot of sorts with a student from the high school, which goes on a little bit, but those are tiny little things. Those are things that don't really bother me in the long run because they did wrap it up well for the most part. So I'm gonna let those things slide. It's always sometimes about the feeling. It's sometimes just about the emotions you have towards watching a film. And I was consistently happy with this movie. I really love this film. I can't wait to see it again. I'm gonna give Spider-Man Far From Home a 10 out of 10. Thank you very much for watching, guys. The spoiler review will be up next week, of course, after the release has officially happened. Until then, try to stay off the internet, stay away from any surprises so that you guys don't get to know anything, and keep in the shadows. As always, if you like this, please do subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the movies.